What is the worst scandal that happened at your school? Story number 1. I'll never forget the scandal that rocked my high school during my junior year. As a pretty average student in a relatively small town, I never imagined that our school would become the epicenter of a scandal that would not only make national headlines, but also change the lives of everyone involved. It all started when our beloved chemistry teacher, Mr. Thompson, he was known for his quirky sense of humor, ability to make complex concepts easy to understand, and genuine concern for his students. His passion for teaching made him a favorite among students and faculty. But things took a dark turn when it was discovered that Mr. Thompson had been using his chemistry lab for something far more sinister than teaching. Rumors began circulating in the air when students noticed strange packages being delivered to the school after hours. It wasn't long before our nosy school newspaper reporter Sarah decides to investigate. She had a knack for getting herself into some sorts of trouble, but this time her curiosity would lead her to uncover something beyond our wildest imagination. Sarah's investigation revealed that Mr. Thompson had been a secret manufacturer for illicit drugs in the school's chemistry lab. It turned out that he was a key player in a local drug operation and had been using his position as a teacher to hide his criminal activities. Sarah was shocked by her discovery and knew she had to bring the truth to light. She anonymously tipped off the local police and provided them with enough evidence to launch a full-blown scale investigation. Well, in the weeks that followed, our school was turned absolutely upside down, as law enforcement officials conducted searches, interviewed students and staff, and began piecing together the extent of Mr. Thompson's operation. The atmosphere at school was tense, as whispers and gossip spread like wildfire. Some students were outraged, others were in disbelief, but everybody was glued to the unfolding drama. The day Mr. Thompson was arrested was one I'll never forget. We were in the middle of a chemistry lesson when the principal, accompanied by, several police officers, entered the classroom. Mr. Thompson's face turned a ghost pale color as they placed him in handcuffs and led him away. The shock and betrayal we felt as students was palpable, and the entire school was left reeling in the aftermath. As the story ended up making national headlines, our little town was thrust into a spotlight. Reporters swarmed the school, interviewed students, faculty, eager for a juicy tidbit about the now infamous Chem Lab Kingpin. The scandal even inspired a Lifetime movie, which, to be honest, was an overly dramatic and highly fictionalized portrayal of the event. The fallout from the scandal was far-reaching. The school board launched a full-scale review of its hiring practices, and the principal resigned amid criticism for not detecting Mr. Thompson's activity sooner. Meanwhile, several other members of the drug operation were apprehended, and their connections to the school were scrutinized. For us students, though, the scandal was both shocking and disappointing. It shattered our trust in a teacher that we admired and had no idea. And it cast a shadow over the rest of our high school experience forever. To this day, whenever I meet someone from my hometown, the first thing they ask me if I remember the scandal that rocked our school. Story number 2. Hey guys, my high school, it had always been relatively quiet and unassuming, but in my senior year, we faced a somewhat scandal that changed the way we saw our school. It was the kind of thing that you expected to see in a movie or a TV show, but never in real life, especially not in our sleepy little town. The whole ordeal left us questioning who we could trust and what was really going on behind the scenes at our school. It all began with our school's annual talent show. The talent show was a big deal. The students, parents, and teachers all coming together to celebrate the diverse array of skills and abilities within our school community. But that year, the event took an unexpected turn when an anonymous email was sent to the school administration, revealing that some of the acts had been rigged. The email alleged that the student council, along with a few teachers, had conspired to ensure that certain students would actually win, regardless of the talent they presented. The anonymous whistleblower provided evidence of a secret meeting, bribes even, and threats to support the claim. The school administration was faced with a difficult decision, as you could guess. They could either ignore the allegations and proceed with the talent show, or investigate and potentially uncover a scandal that would shock the school to its core. Choosing to prioritize the integrity of the competition, the administration launched a thorough investigation. As the talent show approached, the atmosphere at school grew increasingly tense. Students were divided between those who believed the allegations and those who thought it was nothing more than a cruel prank. The investigation also put a strain on the relationship between students, teachers, and the administration, as everyone started to suspect one another. As the investigation progressed, the whistleblower's claims began to gain credibility. It was discovered that some of the student council members had indeed been accepting bribes from other students in exchange for guaranteed spots in the talent show. Moreover, a couple of teachers were found to have turned a blind eye to the corruption, allowing the rigged competition to proceed unchecked. Well, guys, the fallout was immense. The student council was disbanded, and those found guilty of corruption were suspended from the school. The teachers involved reprimanded, and one eventually resigned under the pressure of the scandal. As for the talent show itself, it was postponed indefinitely and never happened, leaving many students who had worked hard on their acts feeling cheated, disappointed, as this was the biggest school event of the year. The school community was left reeling from the revelations. Trust between students, teachers, and the administration had been severely severed, and many questioned whether the situation had been handled properly or not. Parents demanded answers, concerned about the ethics and morals being taught to their children, and an environment that was supposed to be nurturing and supportive. In the months that followed, the school underwent a major overhaul. New policies were implemented to ensure transparency and fairness in all aspects of school life, from club elections to academic awards. Additionally, a new principal was appointed, promising a brand new, fresh start for everyone. Well, you could say the scandal served as a wake-up call for the entire community. Students, teachers alike realized the importance of holding one another accountable and maintaining the highest standards. The experience did teach that, well, even seemingly safe and innocent environments of a high school corruption and deceit could still root if left unchecked. Well, as we moved on from the scandal, my school finally began to rebuild its reputation. Story number 3. Growing up, we all had that one person who seemed to make life difficult for others. The school bully, a constant source of anxiety and dread for those they target. For me, that person was James. He was notorious for his relentless teasing, pushing, and sometimes even outright violence. The teachers never seemed to be able to control him, and his reign of terror continued through our school years. But, as they say, karma has a way of catching up to people. Here's the story of what happened to our school bully, and how his life took an unexpected turn. James was the kind of bully who had a particular talent for identifying a person's weakness, and simply exploiting it. He seemed to take pleasure in making others feel small, as if somehow made him bigger by comparison. For years, my classmates and I had to endure his taunts and threats, feeling powerless to do anything about it. That was until our paths crossed again, years after we graduated from high school. See, it was about 10 years after the graduation when I found myself back in my hometown for a family event. While running errands one afternoon, I was surprised to see James working at the local store. He was now a cashier, and his once intimidating presence had diminished significantly. He looked as though life had been hard on him. with worry lines etched across his face and a defeated slouch in his shoulder. The once fearsome bully was now simply unrecognizable. As I approached the checkout counter, I couldn't help but feel a mix of emotions. Surprise, curiosity, and admittedly, a small sense of satisfaction that the person who had caused so much pain to others seemed to be struggling to get by. But as we exchanged pleasantries, I noticed something else. A sense of humility and genuine remorse amongst his eyes. It was as if he had been humbled by life's challenges and was genuinely trying to become a better person. Over time, I learned more about what happened to James since high school. He had struggled with addiction and had spent some time in jail for a series of petty crimes. But it was during his time behind bars that he truly hit rock bottom and realized the error in his ways. He had enrolled in a rehab program and started attending therapy, determined to turn his life around after his release. James had returned to our hometown and found work at the grocery store. Yeah, it wasn't glamorous, but it was honest work, and he seemed genuinely grateful for even the opportunity at life. Over time, he began to reconnect with some of his former classmates, including those that he once absolutely tormented. James made a point of seeking out those he had hurt during school years, offering his apologies and attempting to make amends for his past actions. While some were understandably hesitant to forgive him, others saw the change in him and were willing to give him a second chance. Slowly, James began to rebuild his life and regain the trust of those around him. In an unexpected turn of events, James became an advocate for anti-bullying campaigns in the community schools. He would visit the schools and share his story, speaking candidly about the mistakes he made and the consequences he's faced. He hoped that by sharing his experiences, he could help prevent others from following in his footsteps and teach them about the lasting impact of bullying both the victim and the perpetrator. As the years went by, James continued to work on bettering himself. Story number 4. What's your funniest school incident? Well, everyone has that one hilarious moment from their school days that never fails to make them laugh, no matter how much time has passed. For me, the memory is of, and I say it with capital letters, the great cafeteria food fight of 2006, baby. This legendary event is still talked about in class reunions, and even though it resulted in quite a bit of trouble, the chaos and hilarity of that day are just too memorable not to share. So get this. It all started on a typical Friday during lunchtime. The cafeteria, it was bustling with students, and the atmosphere was filled with usual chatter. My friends and I just sat down with our lunches when we heard the unexpected loud thud of mashed potatoes. Turning to see what had caused the commotion, we saw that a student had accidentally dropped his tray, sending the contents flying across the floor. Normally, this kind of incident would be met with a few sympathetic laughs and some light teasing, but for some reason, on this glorious day, things escalated quite quickly. Another student, seemingly amused by the mess, decides to playfully throw a handful of those mashed potatoes at the student who dropped this tray. Well, this seemingly innocent act set off a chain reaction that I'll never forget, that quickly spiraled out of control. Within seconds, students across the cafeteria were launching food at each other. French fries, chicken nuggets, even entire sandwiches flew through the air. Heck, you name it. Well, that was the great cafeteria fight of 2006. Story number 5. The funniest incident from my school days that always brings a smile to my face happened during my sophomore year. It involved a cunning plan, a mischievous group of students, and an unsuspecting teacher who found himself in the middle of an unforgettable classroom prank. Our history teacher, Mr. Johnson, well, he was kind of a patient man, and he was really kind. But he had one particular quirk that we all found so amusing. He was terrified of rodents. Well, it was a well-known fact amongst the school, and despite our fondness of Mr. Johnson, we could not resist the temptation to play a harmless prank on him. Our plan was pretty simple. See, we would create this realistic-looking fake rat, place it in the classroom before class started, and just watch Mr. Johnson stumble upon it during his lecture. Well, one of my more artistically talented friends was responsible for crafting the fake rat, and they did an absolute remarkable job. It looked as if it could scurry away at any moment. On the day of the prank, we arrived at school early and carefully placed the fake rat on the floor behind Mr. Johnson's desk. As the other students filled in one by one, we could barely contain our excitement. When Mr. Johnson entered the room and began his lecture, we held our breath with anticipation, waiting for the moment of discovery. It wasn't long, truly, before Mr. Johnson paced around his desk, and he caught sight of the rat. His reaction was priceless. He let out a high-pitched yelp, stumbled backward, and nearly knocked over a bookshelf in his haste to get away from the rodent. The entire classroom erupted in laughter as we watched our usually composed teacher absolutely panicking over a fake rat. Realizing that he had been just duped, Mr. Johnson took a deep breath and tried to regain his composure. He looked around the classroom, searching for the culprits, but all we did was just our best to maintain innocent expressions. Despite his obvious embarrassment, Mr. Johnson could not help but crack a smile, as he realized that he had been well and truly pranked. After taking a moment to collect himself, Mr. Johnson picked up the fake rat and examined it. He couldn't help but be impressed by the craftsmanship and admitted that it had given him a good ol' scare. Rather than getting angry or punishing us, Mr. Johnson decided to embrace the humor in the situation, even going as far as to congratulate us on a successful prank. Well, from that day on, our relationship with Mr. Johnson changed. He became more than just a teacher to us. He became a friend. The prank had broken down the barriers between student and teacher, and we discovered Mr. Johnson had a great sense of humor and loved a good laugh, just as much as we did. In the years that followed, the story of the fake rat prank became a legendary tale passed down through the school. And while we did pull other pranks throughout our school days, none of them ever quite got the hype and hilarity, and well, the unforgettable day in Mr. Johnson's classroom when we pulled out that rat. Even now, years later, we laugh and we still think back on that day and the look of sheer terror Mr. Johnson had on his face, and the joy that followed as well. So guys, let me know in the comment section down below, what is the craziest event that has ever happened at your school? Whether it be hilarious, a prank, something extremely dramatic, drop it down below. My name's Mr. Reddito. Go ahead and subscribe for daily Ask Stories, and I will be here to deliver. Have a fantastic day. I'll see you tomorrow.